Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the Akashic Records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Tribe Podcast. Hope you guys had a really good weekend or week or wherever you are when you're listening to this. But Lorena and I actually are going to talk about a really interesting episode, and it's kind of like we're going to mix up a bunch of other episodes we've already talked about. I think we're going to go a little bit deeper. That's the plan. So we'll see where that goes. But we want to kind of hit on cellular memory and karma again and ancestral karma. So there's quite a few things that we've kind of, I guess, already spoken about, but there's quite a few things we want to add and I guess remind everyone of or talk about again so we can be aware of it. And there's, some additional information to add. So I want to just begin with, we've already talked about karma in episodes. What were the numbers again? Remind me.
Well, we have cellular memory on episode 9. I'll link these obviously in the show notes. We have DNA, RNA, cellular memory, and some other stuff on episode 127. And then episode 3 is free will and karma.
33.
Yeah, episode 33.
Okay.
I'm sure we talk about karma a lot. And we have a lot of episodes. I mean, this is going to be episode 154, I believe. So
Can't believe it.
Yeah, and we're coming up to our 4 years. So today would be August 1st when this comes out. So make sure that you go to Instagram. I want to quickly say that before we go into the episode, because today we publish the giveaway on our Instagram. And also, like we mentioned in the previous episode, I'll explain what the giveaway is in a second. If you're in our Patreon group, we're doing the same giveaway there. So we're doing 2 giveaways to celebrate our 4-year anniversary of the Soul Tribe Podcast. And the giveaway is going to be a 60-minute dual Akashic Record reading for one winner. So we'll pick a random person on Instagram and one person on our Patreon. So yeah, make sure you're following us on Instagram. All the links are always on our show notes. So yeah, it's been a wild ride.
I remember when we first started, we began to make lists of things we thought we should talk about this. No, we should talk about that. But our biggest fear was we were going to run out of things to talk about. We already talked about that. Oh yeah, well, we already talked about that. And it's here we are past episode 150 and we keep having things to talk about.
Yeah, we have a list of things still to talk about. We just kind of flow with it now, though.
We used to plan
there's certain topics. Yeah, we used to plan it more, but not even that. There's certain days we'll be hey, we have these topics we can talk about. Today we're not going to talk about that.
We're not feeling it. We'll do
we're not
else.
feeling it.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's certain topics that certain weeks we're we need to talk about this week. And I think that's kind of the case of this episode. It's been one that we've been wanting to talk about for quite a bit. Obviously, we've gone into this topic in different ways. Like you said, we're going to talk about it a little bit deeper today, maybe. But it's something that comes up a lot in Akashic Record readings that we do. I can speak for myself and the readings that I get and how much, I see this pattern in a lot of the people that are coming to me, at least, of having to break these generational karmic ties and to break generational trauma and to change things up and kind of feeling a little bit out of place in their family or they have to do the heavy lifting, right? And there's a lot of that going on right now for a lot of people. And, when we started this podcast, it was always we don't want people to feel alone. We want people to understand that we understand what they're going through and that some of us in this community might be feeling that too. So the fact that we're talking about it in a general sense today hopefully makes you feel like you're not alone and that there's other people also going through that, because it definitely is happening.
Yeah. I wasn't understanding why all of a sudden I was getting readings with people who were being told that they actually were in charge of, for some reason, they were in this moment, their purpose or part of their mission was in charge of clearing out all the junk from their ancestral line before them. I mean, this could be just their mom, their grandfather, or all the way back, like great. Like it could be way back there. You're cleaning stuff out. And I fully didn't understand it till recently that I realized that since we are going through this pivotal time on Earth where we're moving from 3D to 5D, one thing that doesn't exist in 5D is karma, but it can't be left up in the air. Like, here, okay, you know what? Just go to 5D, go on. There's all this stuff kind of in your family line that kind of wasn't really resolved, but just move on anyways. That has to be dealt with as best as possible. Like, it doesn't mean that if you don't fully clear it out, you're not going to go because you've been trying. It means that they're giving people time to clear that out so that they can create a less denser kind of scenario to move out of, in a way. And some of us signed up for that. Some people didn't at all, but some people did sign up for that. And now I understand why it's become a reality for a lot of people I've read for. It's become a thing because it's like the spiritual teams are like going, okay, knock on wood, like it's almost time. Like, I think we should clear this out now so you can move on by to fifth and have a good time, like a better time, right? But fifth dimension is literally your karmic cycles are gone. So you don't have to carry any of those burdens or anything that supposedly your soul might have pending. If you've actually done the work enough to move to 5D, then it's considered that that's no longer going to be in your cycle. Yeah. You don't vibrate in that karmic cycle anymore. Your energy doesn't vibrate in that anymore. You're out of that 3D. So that was interesting. That when I first started getting information from readings, when I was doing readings, I didn't understand why I was getting more than one person with that. And then, a few weeks or I don't know if it was a month or a few weeks later, I'm starting to understand that now. Why that's a scenario for more than one person. So we've talked about this before, but I'm just going to kind of like repeat it in case, which is, so obviously we come into this lifetime with whatever, and the word karma is so negative sometimes. So it's like a pending lesson, something your soul hasn't figured out yet, right? That's kind of, call it a lesson. So your soul comes in with pending lessons that it hasn't really nailed down yet, I guess you could say. And those are kind of in the soul contract saying, okay, well, in this lifetime I'm going to come in, I'm going to be this person, I'm going to be this character, I'm going to try to bump into these people, resolve these issues, go through these lessons, and then that cycle will be done. Great, amazing. But at the same time, whatever family you're born into, then you're inheriting your stuff from your ancestors. So that will be your mom and your dad and all those behind them as well. So then you have that ancestral karma, you have that personal karma, you have that ancestral karma. And then you have what's the same thing as ancestral karma in a way is cellular memory, right? We talked about that in the episode. So cellular memory would be both, because cellular memory brings in all the stuff from this lifetime. It could be from your soul's past lifetimes, and it could be from your ancestors. So it's like everything built up in your cells.
Yeah. I think it can get confusing as sometimes when we're doing our healing work. Like, where is this coming from? I think that's a huge question that we need to be aware of asking ourselves, like, is this mine? Am I maybe just feeling like it's mine, but in actuality, there's nothing that indicates that I would feel this way or be going through this. I think this comes with a lot of fears, a lot of things that don't make sense to us. But yeah, I think cellular memory is such a... I wish we can get somebody that like a scientist or something that could look at it in the DNA sense. Do you know what I mean? And could talk about it from the scientific perspective, because there's so much behind that could help us understand it in the spiritual sense too. Maybe one day, but I think there's a lot to it.
We give a little brief scientific explanation in our course, and
yeah, we do.
And the Akashic course, we give a brief explanation of cellular memory from a more scientific point, very brief. But it's a really good example. So, I mean, you have some examples out there, and there must be scientists out there talking about it. I'm sure there is.
Yeah, I mean, even in the episode, which one was it? I think it was episode 127. We talk about the difference between DNA and RNA. So make sure you check that out, because it kind of explains how some of it is our own things that we're bringing into this life, and others are that inherited stuff. And that's where it can be kind of understood in a scientific sense, I guess. But that still doesn't kind of account for how we could still feel confused in this life, because we're going through something, but we don't know why, or why it's happening, or why we feel that way. And sometimes it can be really like that pattern that repeats and repeats. And you're like, why do I keep doing this? I don't want to be doing this, but I keep doing it. Or I keep not believing in myself, or I keep feeling so stuck in a job, or I feel like there's just a lot of, this could be many examples, right? Where we're just repeating something that maybe our grandfather or grandmother or mother went through, like with relationships or with emotions or with trauma. They went through something super traumatic, and then somehow we're living it out, or it's affected us even though we didn't actually go through it.
Yeah. And then to add to the confusion, it could actually be just a pattern that you have that's your own personal, that has nothing to do with ancestors, but it can also be a belief system you grabbed onto not too long ago. Like, it could be so many things. It's like, you have to start to get to, it's like you need to like be your own psychologist. You need to like be like, oh, I know what this is. Okay, this is that stuff that comes from my grandparents. Oh, this is the thing that Lucia grabbed onto when she was in college and she believed, I know what this is. I'm an empath. This is actually not mine. I recognize this feeling, and actually it's not coming from me. It's like, there's so many points of you need to be so aware of yourself.
It's awareness, exactly. Yeah. It's the more aware, and that awareness requires presence and being in the present moment, and mindfulness, so that there might be practices that we might have to incorporate where we can start to not push those emotions away. Because to me also, that's interesting what you were saying. Like, what I wrote down here was like, these could be emotions, mindsets, trauma, patterns. I don't know. It could just be a whole bunch of things.
Belief
that could
system,
just belief systems,
religious beliefs. Like, so many.
This can be so physical things, even illnesses. It's pretty broad. So the more aware and the more we can go inward and question everything, but not in, I always say don't judge it, because that's what we've learned that really works. And where, when we start to judge something, we bring the ego in, and that's not helping us. So not judging whatever we're feeling or going through, and being able to be like that, curious about it. Like, why do I keep doing this thing over and over again? And why is this pattern showing up? And it shows up only in this part of my, like, that curiosity, like that energy, you know what I mean? That helps us work through that. And many times we will need somebody to help us work through that. I've had to do that. I still do that. And I'm okay with that.
Oh my God, yes. I too, because you need someone from outside of you to like, from outside of you, like, people see it clearer. Like, you're in the middle of it. You're in the middle of it. And sometimes you just don't want to sometimes it's you don't want to cut yourself some slack. I've noticed that people are really rough on themselves. Like, you would think that people would be more blaming outside, but I found that those people that are really want to go deeper, and those people that really want to heal things, and those that no longer want to be a victim, also have that thing where, like, they don't actually blame outside. Sometimes they're blaming themselves more than externally.
They're very hard on themselves. I find that too. Like, or there's this very interesting energy of brushing things off. No, that wasn't a big deal. No, that didn't matter.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I know it was hard, but it's fine. It's like, yeah, maybe you can rationalize that and say it's fine now, but that really was a difficult time for you, and you haven't fully dealt with it yet. And until you can do that, I think that a good example of that is like our move. For me, moving back to Uruguay after so many years of living in the United States, that literally it was like this snowball of all these things happening, from my panic attacks to like full-blown depression to having suicidal thoughts to a whole bunch of things, of just feeling so lost and so alone and so scared. It brought up so many emotions. And then when I actually was ready to go to therapy, which was pretty much the only thing that helped me deal with this, there's no medication that helped me. The moment that therapist kind of sat with me and was able to show me that it wasn't actually me moving back to Uruguay that was the issue, it was what it was bringing up from actually the move from Uruguay to the United States. Because I was so young. I was 5 years old, right? you were younger, you were 3.5, I believe. That for, you know, and everybody like we went through the same thing, maybe a little bit of a different age, but we dealt with things very differently. And I think realizing where that stemmed from, that the origin of it wasn't necessarily going back to Uruguay, it was actually moving to the United States, and how this was just bringing up all those emotions again that I had to look at, that I hadn't dealt with because I was so young.
I don't know. It's weird. Obviously I had a tough time going to Uruguay, but I don't feel like I have anything residual from going to the States.
I mean, for me, it just brought up those emotions because I repressed a lot, right? You didn't do that. You never were like that.
I'm like, if you see me, I'm like thinking, I'm like, huh.
Yeah. I mean, this is what I'm talking about, being aware, like, oh, wow, let me think about that for a moment. Let me sit with that idea.
The only thing that I can remember for me was difficult was, like, obviously mom and dad had to go to work right away. And as soon as, like, they could put us in a school, my class ended before yours, and mom had to work. She couldn't pick me up. So somehow the school let me go into your class. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes if I got upset and cried, they would also send me to your class. And so I would feel the teacher not wanting to deal with me and sending me to class with my sister, but then I could see the face of, oh, Lucia's here to bother me again. And like, it was embarrassing probably for you or whatever. So then I felt the second time I felt rejected 2 times because it was the teacher taking me to my sister, and then my sister not wanting to sit down with me, because I understand, of course. But
I
like,
don't even remember
oh my God, I remember feeling like so rejected. So rejected. And then obviously I don't remember talking to mom about it. I don't remember that. And then I do remember not understanding what any of the kids were saying.
Yeah. That was a whole thing, the language barrier.
And I just remember just feeling like, what are they saying? And like, I don't remember, like, I don't have visual memories of it. I just remember kind of like the instance of thinking, what are people saying to me? And like, I didn't know how to communicate that I had to go to the bathroom and things like that. I remember feeling that. Like, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. Like, what am I supposed to say to them? Like, how do I let them know?
Just imagine how scary that is. But I think that also brings in emotions that later on we can look at it and like empathize with, be like, wow, that was a hard thing I went through, and not brush it off. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm saying, what I see when we're talking about people being hard on themselves, people will brush off things. Yeah, it was this and that, but it was fine. It's like, yeah, you can rationalize that it was fine, but when you were in that moment going through that at that age or at that moment of your life, it was really hard. Like, be compassionate with yourself through those things. It's not like being a victim, because one thing's being compassionate with yourself, another thing's being a victim. Those are very different energies. We have to look through the compassion lens and being able to connect with that energy so that we can love ourselves, heal our inner child, heal ourselves, whatever that is, and be able to look at that situation and not allow that to kind of dictate how, like, our patterns and what we do moving forward. I think that's a really big part of our healing and letting go of karmic things, for sure.
That reminds me of a story I heard. Now, I can't remember what class I heard it in. It was in some sort of a class, and it was something that stuck with me in my brain, but I can't remember all the specific details, so it's going to be kind of like, don't take me at like every bit as my word, but it was something along the lines of, it was a group meeting up and they were working on things like we're talking about, like to release things, and right. And it was more for healing, as in like your health. And so this one woman, everyone's kind of sitting down and everyone's talking to each other and kind of going through things. And then this one woman walks in who supposedly was like a cancer patient. So she was, I think she was recovered, but she still like talked about it a lot. And so
yes, I think I know what you're talking about.
I don't know where I got this story from, but I remember it because I was like, I was like, this is a good story. And so this woman comes in and starts talking to, like, grabs the first person she can that maybe doesn't know her story, and just spends the next like 3 hours talking about the way she was left and the way this and like all those negative things that happened to her life. And they talk about her sickness and her sickness and her sickness and being left and being left and being left and her sickness and her sickness and her sickness. And so like at one point this woman moved on, and the person, she grabbed a person to talk to that was apparently new to the group. And so when the teacher came in, the person said to the teacher, like, the other person that had heard the story said to the teacher, I'm like, oh my God, like, is she okay? Or it's like, oh no, like, I don't remember her name, but like, that's Maria. We let Maria talk. She's still in the place where she still considers herself, she still repeats her story. Even though her story is the past and she can heal from it, she's still deciding that she is her story, and she continues to repeat it to anyone that will listen. So she continues to live in the story, and so that means she continues to be sick. But we have to respect her. She's not ready to let go of her story, and so we'll let her continue to define herself as her story, which is the victim role.
Yeah.
So there's a fine line between allowing yourself to know the difficulties you went through, but allowing it to still be your story.
Yeah, well, exactly. Because it is your story, and it helps you become stronger, learn the lessons, and do all those things that we need to do. Check those things off our list of our contract, our soul contract. I don't know why I'm thinking that might be Joe Dispenza, but I might be wrong.
It might be.
It might be. I don't know. But I read it too. I don't know where. I don't remember where. Maybe it was a book. Who knows?
Grab it lightly, because there might be details I don't remember. But I remember her still being her story. I remember her grabbing someone that didn't know her story yet, and people saying, "Yeah, she's still living that." It could be Joe Dispenza.
Yeah, I don't remember. If we remember, we'll link it.
I might have heard it in like the masterclass on Gaia or something. I don't remember now.
But something you were saying in like this, even we're talking about the victim role, and you saying how you felt rejected in some way. Many times we have to think that maybe there was somebody in our family that also felt rejected, or you feel rejected in other ways in your life. So there could be patterns also in that sense, that it doesn't just show up in one way in your life, but it might be something that you're repeating karmically from a past life, or something that maybe your mom went through, your father went through.
Or it could be just, let's say that it was in my case, I could have picked it up when that happened, and then I kept it by the rest of my life. So it could even be generated in this lifetime.
Yeah, of course. So there's many ways to bring awareness to whatever you're feeling and trying to figure out. It might not just be one thing, right? It could be a couple of things too. There could be an element, like for example, when some people come to me for a reading and they're like, I want to know if this is attached to a past life, this thing I'm going through, this pattern. So and many times it'll be like, yeah, this is attached to this thing in a past life, or there are some past life elements to it, but this is also coming from this relationship in your life, or from something that your mom or your dad went through. So generally speaking, I feel like there tends to be one that's above all of them, but there are other ones that are like residual from other things. Like it could be like 80% this and then 20% something else, which makes it feel more complicated. I think especially when things are past life, they can feel heavier, like a lot heavier.
We're just so complex. I mean, we're just so complex because it's not as easy as like one answer sometimes. It's not like, it's this.
No.
It's this with this with this with this and this all together. It's like sometimes it's
like a recipe.
Sometimes we're just so complex. And you know what? That's a beautiful thing about us. Like, since I've been studying the universe and deep diving, I'm just going, even the cosmos is so freaking complex. Like, it's not just one thing. It's like so many things all the time, including ourselves and how we function. Mm-hmm.
It's very complex.
Yeah, it's crazy.
We have to be patient with ourselves too through that process, because sometimes we don't find all those answers right away. We can get hints of it, and then that brings us to something else, and then something else, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, now I get it.
Yeah.
Now I've come full circle and I get it. That doesn't mean we fully healed it either. We always talk about the onion layers of how things it's a process. Because let's say that something comes up from a past life. So you start to look at that, you start to heal that, work through that. And then all of a sudden you realize that that's also coming from somewhere else, or it's brought up something else, another pattern. So you have to work through that pattern. So and many times it can have layers of like that we need to work through, but also that one thing can cause something else to pop up that we also need to work through.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing that we talked about in the cellular memory episode that I wanted to bring up again was organs. When someone gets an organ transplant, we talked about how, let's say that person really liked, apples. Let's say somebody got a heart transplant, and the donor of that heart transplant, who obviously passed away, was, loved, apple pie. Let's say apple pie. Like loved apple pie, like seriously loved apple pie. and then was afraid of the dark, for example. And then this person who never liked sweets and also never had any problem with the dark, all of a sudden this individual who got a new heart starts having this scenario where they're afraid of the dark and they don't know why all of a sudden. Also, they've got this massive craving for apple pies. Like,
or just apples.
or just like apples or whatever. Like, where does this... I've never even liked apples or sweets. Like, what's going on? So we explained this in an episode that it's about like cellular memory, right? The cells in that organ are still carrying that information of the person, you know, the body that it was in before, because it was part of the whole system, right? And the soul was fully integrated in that. The whole life was integrated in every cell of the body, not just in one, you know, one part of it. It was in all of it. And even if the soul retires and leaves from it, it's still, as long as one of those organs stay alive, there's a portion of it that stays alive. Mm-hmm. Right? What I didn't think to pay attention or to look into that I've recently found out was that not only does the cellular memory of the organ carry those things that that person preferred or didn't prefer or feared or didn't fear, it also carries pending karma.
Wow.
Yeah. So you might have new things coming, and it could be, careful, because it could be the cellular memory is carrying karma, which are pending lessons, or it could bring in as well, like dharma, right? Like good things that the person has already worked through. Like maybe the person that like got the organ transplant had issues with abundancy, but maybe the person with the heart lived in complete and utter abundance and thought he deserved and all of it. And now this person with the heart brings in a new heart, and all of a sudden they're becoming abundant.
Yeah.
So you could inherit good things, just like you can inherit difficult, I'm going to say bad things because the word bad's wrong, difficult scenarios and lessons that now you've just brought into your system through that cellular memory of that organ that's part of you now.
Yeah. I mean, in past episodes, we've also talked about, and in our courses as well, when we talk about like names, you taking on somebody's last name when you marry somebody or you divorce somebody and you go back to your name, that also carries karmic things with it. Just that act of like taking somebody's name and then fusing with their family and their karmic lessons and their karma, that can have a huge impact on us.
Yeah.
Huge.
And let's say that I stopped liking the name Lucia and just randomly picked the name, I don't know, Karen. Let's say I decided I'm going to call myself Karen now, right? That's not tied to a family per se because I picked it, but the vibration of my name now has changed. The numbers of my name and the vibration of my names now have changed. So that will also change up things for me. So the last name is a thing because you're bringing the karma that's coming from that last name you're grabbing it from, but then changing your name changes up the vibration of your name, which either can be to your favor or against things that you're trying to like break through as well.
Yeah. I also think if we do choose certain, like, you know, marrying somebody, for example, and taking their name, sometimes we have a choice on doing that or not, right? It's like, I'm not taking their name. And I hear a lot of people say that.
I didn't take
so
the
exactly.
name.
Yeah. Because I think you already knew the repercussions of that.
I had to get to know the ancestral line of my, at the time, husband, figure out what their biggest blocks were. It's like I had to do all the digging again and go, let me do... I'll stick with the one I know, the issues that they already have. I pretty much got it now. I already know the basics of it. Like, let me stay here.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that you wouldn't take somebody's name even though you know that they're going through, you just feel that you need to take that name on. There might be a reason for that. That was my point, basically. It might help you. It might help you also learn those lessons yourself, or, you know, you might be in that life to assist that person in some way by taking that name on.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more complex.
I'm going to take this on with you. You do half and I do the other half now or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Which hopefully it usually is that way, because some contracts aren't that way. But imagine you getting together with somebody, changing your name, and then you having to do all the work and the other person not doing the work. That's complicated.
Yeah.
And that might be your contract with them. You know,
maybe. Yeah.
We see that too. So
yeah. As well. Yeah. The other thing I thought was a little bit complicated because I thought about organs and I thought about blood, and something that I've also learned about blood was So we've talked about DNA and RNA, right? Well, DNA apparently is what for you was RNA?
DNA is more like our physical structure, like illnesses and things from our bloodline. And then RNA is all the cellular memory stuff, like things from past lives, the emotional stuff, the trauma.
It's like cellular memory. Okay.
Yeah.
Because to me, what I'm about to talk about, for me, that's called DNA. But I guess that makes sense. Because apparently there's these beings that work on genes or DNA. And apparently everything's code, which is why you would if you read the book, which I have not gotten to yet, but there's a book called The God Code, which is by Greg Braden. So that supposedly talks about this percentage that's in our DNA that scientists can't figure out. They call it junk DNA. They can't figure out why that's there. And so there's a belief system some people have. Of course, scientists haven't, confirmed it. But there's this belief system that that's actually really important, and it comes from possibly somewhere above us, right? Like from an astral place.
Okay. So, sorry, just to clarify, I even have this on my Akashic Record form. When somebody signs up for a reading, I send them this form, and it says here, in your DNA, you will find everything that you inherit from your family system, the lineage, the body, your genetics in this life. The RNA is all about the soul, and that has been going through what it has gone through, all the times and spaces in which it experienced and what it's learned and everything that's pending. So maybe what this person is talking about is the RNA.
No, they called it DNA.
They called it DNA?
Yeah, they called it cosmic DNA. It could be just
RNAs
labels.
Also were like
it could be just labels.
We don't like labels.
It could be just labels because what they're calling it is cosmic DNA. Apparently, we're replicas of our creator. And so there's a whole spiritual team, I guess you can call them, beings, all these beings that get together, and they've created the human bodies that we have now. They've changed it up and changed it up and changed it up. So our evolution is thanks to, and our evolution is considered rapid. It's because they every once in a while come in and they'll make these changes. And so you'll see human beings. That's why we can go to 5D now. Because if not, we would still be probably being cavemen right now. Because that's how long it takes if you let it go through the process on its own, the races. But if these beings come in and they work on the DNA with time, then we more rapidly move through the cycles. So that's why we're able to go to 5D now. So they're calling it cosmic DNA because it's coding. It's all code. It's coding. And this coding goes into... apparently it confused with us because it confused with warm blood.
Oh.
So that's why the reptilian beings have evolution problems because their blood cannot be infused with that DNA code and they can't be assisted with evolving as quickly as us because their blood is cold.
They're cold-blooded. Okay.
Yeah. So then I got to thinking, what happens when you have this code set that your soul said, I'm picking this body. This is perfect for what I'm here to do. I want to be tied to maybe this family line. I want this kind of body. I want to be female. I want to be blah, 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 right? What happens if tomorrow you have an accident and you get a blood infusion and your cosmic code, transfusion. Then you're bringing in that warm blood of someone else that actually has maybe specific or different codes because their body's a little bit different because they need it that way because we know that there's different kinds of DNA here on Earth, right?
Yeah.
But we're mixes of a lot of races as well. We have I always call it the potpourri of DNA, right?
Yeah. That makes total sense.
Yeah. So I think that there's this adaptation. This is by the way, guys, this is what I'm about to say. This is a Lucia thing. I could be right. I could be wrong. But I believe that the blood that you just had a blood transfusion, right? This comes into your system. I feel like it can possibly mix up things for you in the next 6 months while some other blood is going through till your body's other DNA doesn't clear out that DNA that's not actually yours. I feel like things could be bumpy. Because it's someone else's code coming into your body that might not be I think that some cases it might be okay, but I feel like what I feel is that some cases they could collide with each other because they're so different in coding or you know, or structures or missions. I don't know what to call it, but they might be so different they collide. So I feel like blood transfusion can either be neutral because it's not that bad of a collision and differences, or it could be so different that there's an internal fight inside, and your organs are working overdrive to start clearing out that blood, which will take probably about 6 months.
Wow, yeah. I mean, don't even go as far as blood. Like, think about water. Like how we can infuse energy into water. Like water.
I mean, yeah, we're a lot of water.
Imagine our blood that is in our body. It's part of us. And that, even if you think about it, like, blood's such a weird thing to think about. It's like there's blood types.
Those
and
are tied to races.
Some of them, yeah, and they're not. They don't all match. So I can't give you my blood if I have a specific type and you have a specific type.
And it's so weird, isn't it?
That, to me, there's something behind that.
Yeah.
Spiritual.
Well, I guess that would make sense why I'm saying, because when I was saying that, I'm not thinking about blood types, but then that might be the collision. It might just not be blood types. It might be from an energetic place. That is the blood. Maybe for us on the earth, it's represented as blood types. But when the difference is so big, it's so big that you can't even bring it in. So thinking about it, kind of like what you said.
Yeah, if you get a transfusion, you wouldn't be able to get a blood type that's not yours.
And then you have blood types of people, what is like,
like O positive, O negative, or something like that, and then I don't remember the other one.
Those people can give blood to anybody, I think.
Something like that. I don't remember.
It's so weird because, like, I remember the first thing I asked the doctor after I had Aurora was, "Can you tell me her blood types in case there was any emergencies? I wanted to know what her blood type was." And oh, by the way, can you tell me mine? Because I don't know it either. I was like,
yeah, I don't know mine. Actually.
You're the same as me, I think. I think we're B positive, aren't we?
Oh, I don't know. I'm gonna look this up.
Well, I asked, and Aurora had the same one as me, but then Aurora's biological father has a different one than me. So how does that work? The baby takes in one of them?
There's 4 main blood groups: A, B, and O.
So we're B.
It says your blood group is determined by the genes you inherit from your parents. Each group can be either RHD positive or RHD negative, which means in total there are 8 blood groups. So it's like A positive, A negative, O positive, O negative.
Yeah, so I think that we're B positive, and Aurora's the same as us. And we're not for mom, because mom's O. What is it? Is she positive and negative? Is that what it is?
Yeah,
O?
but the thing is, like, with O, I think... Yeah, I think the O, you have like A and B, so you would be able to, I don't know. We're talking very scientific things right now.
And then I think that we're the same blood type probably as dad, which is it's probably from dad.
Yeah.
But isn't it weird to think that Aurora was created by the mix of me and her biological father, yet she has my blood type, but she doesn't have his. Like, so your body, obviously, your soul, I guess, before coming is like, these are the 2 parents I'm coming in via, and oh, by the way, the blood that I need, that's going to be my DNA coding structure, that's going to most assist me, is going to be this one, so I'm going to have this one.
Okay, question we can ask the Akashic Records, because obviously we have them open, is, you were saying that Aurora, for example, has your blood type, right? Does that mean she's going to carry more of your karmic things in general?
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense. That to me makes total sense.
So that means that we're carrying more of dad's stuff?
I don't know about that, but I think she's more connected to you and what your lessons are, and her maybe carrying things for you in the future or in the present.
I'm sorry, Aurora.
I think it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I'm getting a yes. Like, if the blood type of the pair you're getting it, that's the one you're more karmically tied to.
I asked a question, but I was already feeling that it was a yes.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
It is interesting. It isn't just thinking about...
in a spiritual sense.
But it's... I mean, I know you're not into universal information, and I am. But just...
I am kind of. I just don't...
Take a moment.
I don't look it up on free time.
Take a moment. Well, I'm doing a whole course, and I'm studying, like, a lot. But a moment... Just take a moment in time, Lorena, and think about this. All those 8 different DNA... Would you call them DNA structures? Would you call them? Blood types?
the blood types.
Those 8 different DNA blood types was created by a group of beings that are not incarnated who know everything that we haven't figured out yet.
That's
about
nuts.
that blood type and how it works for us, in our favor, or, for us.
Okay.
And they've adapted it with time because they're helping us evolve. It's just crazy to think about this stuff.
Interesting.
I see a bunch in my mind. I see a bunch of this is Lucia being funny. I see a bunch of scientists like mixing up blood, going, "Oh, had a little bit of this and had a little bit of that."
Some spice over here.
We got it. We've upgraded. But this makes sense to me because for those that are on the Patreon, I don't know how far back it was, but I did a whole episode about how important it was for us to protect our DNA. Mm-hmm. And now that we're talking about this and all this stuff that I very recently figured out, I'm like, now I get it. Now I know why they were telling us, be very careful with your DNA, and like all this stuff around us can kind of possibly change it, affect it, alter it, disrupt it. Yeah. So now I get it. Now I understand why they said that.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Crazy, huh? So, way to change up the episode that we did like 4 years ago.
Yeah, I still want to go a little bit, like before we wrap up the episode, I want to go into what has, like, because I think this is where people can maybe relate to what's going on in their own way. Like, where do you see this breaking generational patterns come up in readings in general? Like, what topics or things do you see, or messages that you get that maybe we can share with?
There's a lot of like
listeners.
Emotional releasing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emotional stuff. I think that our generation, and I'm generalizing, right? I think that our generation began the process of opening up and starting to actually talk about like what you feel, and that it's okay to cry in front of people, and it's okay to be upset, and it's okay to go see a therapist, and it's okay, like, if you need to talk to someone. Whereas I think that, and again, I'm generalizing, everybody before us, our ancestors, maybe they took to the bottle, they took to alcohol, they took to drugs, they took to like staying at home and being depressed and not talking to anybody about it and pretending like everything's okay, or, and especially men, like, what's the saying? Boys don't cry and things like that. Like,
yeah,
like our
those
generation,
are all just mindsets too.
Yeah, like
societal pressures.
Our generation's breaking that, and so there's also I think that there's a reason for that, and part of that is because we are here to help clear out all this karmic things that all it was doing was being built up and not dealt with. And since we are in a really pivotal point on Earth, there needed to be a generation to come in and break that. And we're kind of at a moment where it's less taboo and you can really do the work from a mind psychological place, or it's also an energetic place. Like, finally, you can do it from different places.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with the emotional. I mean, obviously you guys know when I talk about my readings on the podcast that I go really into a lot of inner child stuff, family stuff. That's why I'm going to study family constellations. And I think everything starts with the family. Everything starts with that family unit. That's where our DNA comes from. That's where a lot of the stuff that we inherit comes from, what we learn, be it something that's to our favor or not to our favor. I do believe that a lot of the things I see coming up are putting people in really uncomfortable positions, like I said before, right? They're needing to change patterns, they're needing to put up boundaries, they're needing to start to be more aware and to say, well, this isn't mine. So I release this, I let this go, and I start to work through this and figure out who I am within this pattern, within this structure, within this family. And that's hard. It's not an easy position to have, but it's also a huge privilege if we think about it, because you having that position and having that opportunity to break that for yourself, for the generations to come, we have to think it also goes back, because if we can heal that, if we can let that go, that gives our parents, their parents, those before them, also it heals stuff going back not only forward, like we obviously in our mind, in our rational mind, we think about a timeline like past, present, and future, but in the energetic and spiritual sense, that doesn't really exist. It heals the timeline entirely. It might not heal it completely because there might be more elements to it, but it helps heal it all. So we're not only healing it for ourselves, but we're healing it for the people that came before us and those that are coming.
Yeah.
And I think that's huge responsibility. And that's why it feels so daunting and really scary and really hard, because obviously these are really many times ingrained patterns that feel like we don't even understand them. Like I was saying, that we have to bring so much awareness, and we probably need help with it. And we need to figure out a way of being able to heal that in some way, because everybody's case is different. Everybody's situation is different. But I'm seeing a lot where it's patterns, it's emotional trauma, it's belief systems. I think those are huge, huge, huge. And then you're living your life and you're like, oh yeah, this is what I do. I'm like, but why? Why are you doing that? I don't know. So this is why we have to like question everything. And why that practice of like, even if we think about opening your own, like you open your own Akashic records, the first thing you do is you start to ask questions. If we can do that outside of the Akashic realm, imagine how more aware we'd all become. How we wouldn't judge ourselves as much. We're just being curious. We're trying to be investigators, be our own kind of detectives. And I think that's a huge thing that we all need to get into that energy. And I think also this idea of, what if I healed this? What if I didn't carry this anymore? What would that mean to me and my family and everybody in my life? And I think it's important to do things for ourselves first, and then everybody else comes after that, because it's just residual. It's going to help them too, of course. But it's not comfortable, because you're going to need to do things that you're not doing right now. But know that it's going to be okay. It's a lot of work. But it's worth it.
Yeah. I find it harder when like, like there's a scenario, for example, and everyone just pretends like it's okay.
Yeah.
I find that so hard. Like, no, like I just, in my mind, I'm looking around going, we're all going to pretend like it didn't happen? Like, what? Is this what we're doing? Like the elephant in the room kind of scenario? Huh?
Yeah. That might be a pattern.
It's just, it's so weird to me. Mm. But that's how a lot of generations before us dealt with things. Just, let's pretend like it never happened. Let's just leave it back there and untouched. And, and then the great grandchildren get it to deal with it, right? AKA probably us.
Yeah, where we have a hard time dealing with it or confronting things or speaking up or saying something when something bothers us or it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
Totally. That could be a very general thing most people go through, a lot of people go through.
Yeah. But on a good note, for those individuals who are here in this lifetime to possibly move to that dimensional shift, know that karmic stuff is no longer going to have to be a part of you don't have to carry that burden forever. It's going to be something that's part of, another era of humanity that's now coming to full circle, and we're coming into a new cycle. They call it the spirals, right? It's like a spiral.
Yeah.
So the spiral of 26,000 years is closing right now, and we're jumping into the next spiral, which is a more advanced one where karma no longer defines you, no longer limits you. So this is the time to get the stuff out so you can prepare yourself to be there.
Wow. That sounds so expansive.
It's amazing.
So
amazing.
So amazing.
It's amazing, yeah. But you don't just jump into it and go, we're here.
No, of course you don't. Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of, systems collapsing, because it also means that all this stuff that the way we used to live and the things that we used to it's that no longer suits us. That's part of the old spiral, right? So it's going to be messy. It is not going to be. It has been messy. It will continue to be messy.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
But stay aware, stay conscious. this is a time to always rely on the tools that you have, the people around you, creating, this is why we've created a community on Patreon and why we create a community here on the podcast, and why it's so important to be able to have people to get through everything, because times are changing.
And really,
and
I would add to that, listen to your gut.
Yes. Intuition. Yes. Yeah. I'm actually, I don't know if it's tonight or tomorrow. I'm going to record a whole, because obviously, like I always mention, Lucy and I record our individual episodes or videos for Patreon. And then we have one that we do together. And then you can tell them a little bit about what you're doing now, because I think it's so cool.
I was waiting for you to finish. I'm like, I can't wait to see what I'm going to do.
wait. So I'm going to be talking about like a bunch of business stuff, because I think there's a lot of people on our Patreon that are also trying to get out of, I guess maybe they're 9-to-5s, but more so they have a passion, they have a mission, they have a purpose, and they want to get started. Yeah, purposeful work, and kind of whatever comes through the Akashic Records, but what I've learned and what we've learned, and kind of share that with the group. So if you guys are interested in, I'm feeling more compelled to talk about things like this. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to join us in the Patreon group. We'll have that link in the show notes. But Lou has implemented something new into our Patreon group, which I'm also thinking about how I'm going to be helping a little bit deeper. But we're figuring that out still. But
you're talking about the other thing. I was thinking about my episode that's coming up for next month. Okay, I'll talk about both of them anyways.
Talk about both, yeah.
About them. I was Lorena. Listen, I don't know if you heard the story because you're not on Telegram too much. So the girls know that, like the girls on the Patreon know the story. But basically, I do a poll like in a month I do a poll for next month. So I literally list possible episodes that I can do. This is me without you, right? Possible episodes that I can record about for the Patreon, and they vote. Like whatever's voted is what wins for the next month, right? What I'm going to talk about. And I was sitting there going, what am I going to do for August? And I was like, And then all of a sudden I was like, I got this like, boom, this hit in my brain. I was like, oh my God, crop circles. I never in my life gave attention to crop circles. Like I never really cared. And I'm like, I don't know why crop circles. Well, that's weird. What am I going to tell about crop circles? Like, I don't know. And then I thought to myself, like, yeah, okay, whatever. It came to my mind. So I wrote it down with a list of other things. I don't remember the other topics. Crop circles won the vote. But the funny thing about that was after I put the poll up, I then after went to read a book I picked up the book that I was reading, and they start talking about crop circles. And then I go to listen to an astrologer that I like to follow. Like, I don't know if it was a few days later. And he talks about the new crop circle that just showed up on Earth.
Wow.
And then today, one of the girls posted on Telegram groups, Lou, here's another crop circle. Another one showed up.
Wow. Like one of those new ones?
And I was like, no wonder I have to talk about crop circles. All right, I can't wait. So I'm really excited to see what comes out in that episode for August. But then also we talked a lot on the Patreon about how important, like we just said, our DNA and how that helps us with our upgrades and things like that. And I was thinking to myself, like, because we're all struggling a little bit with like the energies that are coming in, and sometimes a little rough. But how can I help? And I'm like, oh my gosh, I should just do once a month an angelic healing for everyone in the group, because the angelic realm and the archangels are omnipresent. You say anything? Omnipresent. Yeah. So I could do an angelic healing for the whole Patreon, or whoever wants to sign up on the Patreon, and then they receive it, right? So yeah, I did the vote. Of course, many people were interested in the Patreon, and yeah, so I'm going to start doing that till, I don't know for how long. For now, it feels right. Once a month. And what I'm asking the archangels and angels is send us what we need to like clear out, and also send us what we need to like upgrade and bring in to walk us towards that 5D.
Yeah, I love that. That's so cool.
Yeah, so I'm excited.
That's such a generous thing to do with your energy too, for everybody.
I'm excited.
And needed, very needed right now. Yeah.
I'm also excited about crop circles though. I can't wait.
Yeah. And that's a good thing. Like we each can talk about whatever we want, but then we come together and talk about something that we think, we kind of go both ways.
Yeah.
We pick something in the middle and then talk about a bunch of stuff, give updates, and it's fun. It's a fun outlet. And I feel like we've grown our little community slowly. It feels meaningful. It feels purposeful. It feels intentional. And I don't know. I guess my closing message really with this episode is like, try to do the same thing yourself. If it's not joining somebody's group, create your own soul tribe, create your own community wherever you are. It could be a physical, it could be partly virtual, like whatever that is for you, maybe both. But I think it's important for us to connect with the right people. The people we have around us or that inspire us can help, bring us forward in a different way. It could help us push us to do the things that we need to do to stay in purpose and in our mission, and give us like that, not only the nudge, but I think the encouragement that we need, that sometimes we can't find that with our family or certain friends. I think it's important. It's an important part of what we're going through now, and it helps. It helps.
The future is getting together with people and creating the family that you like. It doesn't have to be someone that's related to you, that other people can become your family. That's literally the future for humanity.
Yeah. 100%.
That's been my reality my entire life. I've always adopted mothers and aunts, and I love doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Even our grandma's not our biological grandma, but to us, she's grandma.
Yeah. I had a dream about her the other night. I was chatting about it in the family group. It was like I was with her. And
welcome. She does that sometimes.
Yeah,
she'll visit you.
That's never happened to me. She didn't say, Mom talked to her. She didn't say she visited me, but it felt like she was with me, which was really nice.
Lorena, you've heard my dream. If you dreamt with her and you felt like she was with her, she was with you.
Felt real.
Do you remember my London story?
Yeah, crazy.
She literally, the next day I called her and she's like, "Oh, you have such a nice room there." I'm like, "Oh, you were here." She knew everything. She knew the colors of the bed, like the duvet, everything.
That's nuts. And we didn't have video chats then.
No,
we weren't video
we
chatting.
didn't take pictures of the room or anything. Yeah, no.
That's awesome. That's awesome. She's so inspirational too. All right, let's close off here. And obviously, like we said at the beginning of the episode, make sure you're following us on Instagram. If you're not part of the Patreon and you're interested in checking out some of our content, we'll have that link below too. And we'll be doing a separate giveaway for a 60-minute dual Akashic record reading there as well. So yeah, we hope you guys have a great weekend whenever you're listening, and wherever you are in the world. We love you, and thank you so much for all the support, and sending you a big hug and lots of love and light.
Bye guys. Thank you.